For those of you who don't really do YouTube shorts, the plot of my life recently goeth thusly. Back in June 2022, I had a funny idea for a YouTube short involving a writer auditioning fantasy heroines for her new book, which somehow turned into a 50-something episode YouTube short serial about Caroline, a romance author writing her first fantasy romance, Rosamund, her recalcitrant and trope-averse heroine, and their enemies to besties relationship. The thing was, everyone kept asking, but what book is this? Because I want to read it. But there wasn't a book, because it was just a series that I'd made up in my head. So when I finished writing and editing the shorts, which was November of last year, and I'd set them all to scheduled upload or whatever, I thought to myself, well, I could try writing it into a book, and if it sucks, then no one ever has to know because I've been very clear that the book doesn't exist. There is no book. I should point out at this juncture that if you're a writer, you're going to hate me by the end of this video, but can't be helped, I hope you enjoy the story anyway. Turning the shorts into a book, which required a lot of expansion, was actually fun, though as you would expect, also kind of hard work. But some approaching National Novel Writing Month speeds later, by just after Christmas, I had a 0 draft of 55,000 words. You couldn't call it a first draft because there's too much still missing, but the majority of the story was there. So I released it to my patrons and said, hey, here is the thing that I have so far. What do you think? And then I was ill for 2 solid months and that wasn't great, but I'm better now, so yay. I spent the latter part of February and March trying to incorporate the suggestions which my patrons had made into the manuscript and kind of adding more bits in, specifically more Caroline, because it really didn't have a lot of Caroline and it needed more. And by the end of March, I had a first draft of 60-something thousand words. Hooray, a first draft! It still needs a bit more Caroline, but that's not really the point. And then I had another funny idea for a video to promote the fact that you could go to my Patreon and pay a couple of dollars and you could read the first draft. So I wrote a YouTube short pitching One Crisis at a Time to Baen Books, both because they're my favourite publisher and also because they have open submissions, and also because the joke was Baen liked things which were 100,000 words-ish, and mine was only 60-something thousand words. The other joke being that the novel isn't actually fantasy per se, it's just sort of fantasy flavoured, but you get me. But fear not, gentle viewer, I said in my YouTube short, because you can come and read the first draft of One Crisis at a Time on my Patreon for a couple of dollars while I work out what we're gonna do with the alternative publishing plan. How do I put this? I am not used to having what you might call clout. I mean, it was only 3 years ago that I had like 25,000 subscribers and no one really cared about my opinion anyway, so I figured it was probable that Baen were going to see it, and I thought they might find it amusing and maybe even drop me an email, and that was in fact what happened. Very, very rapidly. Like, I expected them to see the video. I did not expect them to be like, yeah, sure, send over your crappy first draft and we'll have a look and see how we can help you. At some point I may ask the people involved if they would be okay with me telling like the longer version of this story, because everyone was really nice to me. But suffice it to say for the moment that it felt like wandering into an art gallery with a crayon drawing and being like, look, I made one too, what do you think? Ha! That aside, Baen were not the only publishing company who got in touch, so I spent the month of April talking to people and learning things about traditional publishing and all of this kind of jazz, as well as adding some more stuff to the first draft. And then I sat down and thought to myself, regardless of anything else, what I really need right now is a developmental editor, because I have this first draft and I can tell that it has structural problems, but it's like a rickety Jenga tower at the moment, or maybe one of those like sponge sugar sculpture things. I don't know how to pull the bad blocks out of the Jenga tower and put good blocks in the Jenga tower without the whole thing crashing down around my ears. I don't think the structure is robust enough for this, and I am not a good enough writer to do this by myself. I mean, I don't really consider myself a writer, but I did write something, so I guess there's that. Anyway, I thought to myself, what I really need is a Henry the Hot editor, but preferably someone who's a bit less blunt than Henry the Hot editor, because I am a special snowflake with easily hurt fifis. Also, I've never written anything longer than 30,000 words in my life, and that was probably a decade ago, and it was fanfiction, so you know. I'm pretty sure that the ability to easily take constructive criticism is something that comes with time. When I did stage combat and I was at the standard kind of basic level, everyone was really encouraging all of the time. Because I wasn't really amazing at it, but there were lots of different things I needed to work on. But obviously, as a teacher, you can't tell people all the things they have to work on because that would just overload their brains. So you have to do it one at a time. Gently. Now that I'm at advanced level, the teachers are much more likely to be like, yeah, you need to fix this, this, and this, do it again, better. And you say, yeah, seems fair, let's do it. Maybe everyone else is really good at taking criticism, I don't know. Maybe I'm just out of practice. The long and the short of it is that I hired a developmental editor, but developmental editing takes time, so that is what I'm currently waiting on. In the meantime, I thought to myself, given your options, self-publishing, traditional publishing, given this book, given all the things that you know, which is the better option for you at this time? This is the part where aspiring to be traditionally published authors are going to scream, because I looked at timelines and legality and money and who does what when and all of that sort of stuff, and I thought to myself, yeah, let's do self-publishing. Is this going to be pure, unadulterated pain? Yes, probably. Do I think that it's the best option for this novella at this time? Also, yes. As someone with a substantial reach on YouTube and not a bad platform on TikTok either, I figured the Daniel Green route was probably the one to go. Also, One Crisis at a Time is a weird book. First of all, it's basically a novella at this point. Second, it's not really fantasy, it's sort of romance, but it's definitely metafiction. And metafiction is kind of a hard thing to market, which you can understand is not ideal for a publisher, but doesn't actually matter to me, because the reason I wrote it is because a bunch of you wanted to buy it. The thing is, choosing self-publishing means foregoing all of the advantages of traditional publishing, i.e. having lots of editors and having someone to do your book cover and talk to you about marketing and blurbs and all of that kind of stuff. So I've got to find my own. Developmental editor, check, but I will need copy editing, line editing, proofreading, all of these things. I'm also going to need a cover artist, specifically someone who specializes in books and who knows things about genre, because I don't know anything about genre and I don't really look at book covers. I mean, I've started to do so now because now I need to work out what I want the book cover to look like, but I have an aged Kobo. All of my book covers are low-resolution grayscale blobs. Side note, Bane sent me a couple of signed hardcovers because I said I like the Liaden universe. See, I told you they were lovely. And I just stared at the cover like, oh, that's what Patty's supposed to look like. Huh. I mean, I even have this as an ebook. I've read it before. I just never bothered to look at the cover because it was just grey and blobby. As for One Crisis at a Time, there's obviously going to be an ebook, and the ebook will be DRM free because I hate DRM. Come on, who likes DRM? We're probably going print on demand for the paperback version. I don't think it makes sense for there to be a hardcover version given the length of it, but I will find out closer to the time. And there will probably also be an audiobook, but I'm not quite sure on the timescale of that one, whether it's going to come out at the same time. Thing is, I would like to read my own audiobook. First, because I do have the recording equipment right there in my office, and second, about 90% of the people reading the book are going to hear my voice in their head anyway, for obvious reasons. It's not a coincidence that the characters are going to sound like me in your head. Just saying. That being said, I really don't want to have to edit an audiobook, so if anyone knows of people who do audiobook editing for a reasonable price and turnaround time, let me know. Same for cover artists, by the way. Self-publishing does seem to be a hard row to hoe, as the saying goes, but the thing about it is, I'm in control of the process. If we have to move deadlines around or if things get pushed backwards or forwards or sideways, it doesn't particularly matter because all of my deadlines are self-imposed. I am looking forward to sharing with you, in the shortest timescale that is reasonable, the best book that I can give you at this point in time. But that's going to take at least multiple months, or maybe a year, or maybe even more, but that's still probably quicker than even an optimistic traditional publishing deadline. So we're off to the races, and I will update you as we hit major milestones, like when there's a blurb, when there's cover art, when you can pre-order, all that sort of thing. That being said, you will probably see a bit less long-form content from me in the next couple of months, because I am trying to get the writing part done as efficiently as possible. There may also be more fantasy heroine shorts where Caroline complains about various aspects of the self-publishing process, because we are nothing if not meta. And for all that I'm telling you that I'm going to try and get it to you as efficiently as possible, it's going to take as long as it takes. I want us at least to have moved out of could be worse. If we can elevate it above I will consider it a job well done. So thank you for your patience, and I will see you next week for an armor review.